You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where Raina Wilson brings together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and truth. So many times it's easy to become discouraged in your own pursuit of health because your story or circumstances look drastically different from your favorite influencer or even the expectations you had for yourself. If that is you, welcome. This space is for you to learn, breathe, and maybe just listen and see what wellness could look like for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. On today's episode, I have the calorie deficit king, Jordan Syatt. Elite powerlifter, precision nutrition, and Westside Barbell Certified coach, Jordan is well known for having been Gary Vaynerchuk's personal trainer. Jordan first began Syatt Fitness from his online coaching business from his dorm at the University of Delaware in 2011 and has become one of the industry's leading experts in strength training, nutrition, and overall behavioral psychology. This episode for me was a dream come true as we talked about all things from his entrance into fatherhood and how to support his wife, as well as all the mistakes and misinformation around fat loss, weight loss, and how to really build healthy habits. Jordan has been an inspiration for me professionally and personally over the past few years with all of his knowledge on fat loss, weight loss, and training, so I hope this is an encouragement for you as well. Let's dive in. All right. Welcome, Jordan Syatt, to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. Like I said, I might throw up because my heart is like still beating out of my chest. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm very excited. Thank you for having me. I love that you're open and honest about being nervous. I think it's one of the best ways to get over being nervous.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm a short, bald, nerdy Jewish guy. Nothing to be worried about. We're going to have a great conversation. So thank you for having me on.
No, for sure. Just for some context for our audience, and for you, I have been a follower for many years. And it was actually, I think, in college where I was really wrestling with body image, body dysmorphia, really toxic behavior patterns around nutrition. And I remember seeing one of your reels being like, F it, breathe a little. And I was like, oh my gosh, my world just got wrecked because I didn't think that was okay to approach food in this freedom mentality before it came sexy to have the conversation around food freedom. So I've also just spent many nights dreaming about this conversation and thinking about questions. So this has been a long awaited conversation. And I'm just so thankful for you. So thankful for your platform, your podcast with Mike, your book, have been consuming all of it.
Thank you. That means the world. I literally just got off a podcast with Mike right now. So I appreciate that. It means the world to me. And thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to just dive in. Your life from Instagram has looked kind of crazy over the past couple months. So I would just love for you to share about your family and what life has just looked like for you recently.
Yeah, so I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter. My daughter just turned 8 months old a couple days ago, which is crazy. And so over the last month, we were traveling. So we live in Dallas and we don't have any family in Dallas. So we it was Passover as well. So wanted to go celebrate Passover and make sure our daughter could see our family in Boston. So we went to Boston for a week. And that was great. Saw my mom and that side of the family. Then we went to Israel for 2 weeks and have some family there. So we hung out with them, which was great. It was the first time them meeting my daughter. And then we went to Atlanta for my wife's family. And it was great. It was about a little over 3 weeks or so. And it was very tiring and it was very stressful. It was so funny. It's so crazy how good the social media platforms are at knowing each individual. But literally 2 or 3 days into this quote unquote vacation, I got served up a reel of this guy on vacation with his kids. And basically he was just saying, vacation when you're a parent is really just watching your kids in a different place. And it was very real. Yes. It was the most statement I've heard in a while. And it honestly made me feel better because part of me was feeling stressed that I wasn't having a vacation like I was used to. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this is normal. Okay, this is good. And one of my buddies today at jiu-jitsu, he has 4 kids, and he was like, yeah, there's a difference between a vacation and a family trip. They're different things.
Yes. Yes.
So we just got back from that a few days ago now, and we're back on schedule. My daughter is over the jet lag. She's great. She was fantastic. But yeah,
Yeah.
craziness, but all good stuff. I'm very blessed, and everything's going really well.
Yeah. I saw that the other day too. It was like, it's not a vacation if your kids are coming with you, it's a trip. And I was like, I feel that to my core. My son just turned 2 on Friday.
Oh, congrats.
So,
it's amazing.
Thank you. All the toddler things, you know? So I feel that, and I felt deeply seen.
What did you do for his birthday?
We did, he's really into construction and like lawn work.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like his prize possession right now is a leaf blower that has like the backpack on it. So he could like walk around the house and blow the leaves.
That is so funny. I love that. Isn't it so funny how just like little boys and little girls, like they're so pure. They're just so, and it's like he loves construction and like blowing leaves. Like I love that. It's just, it's so simple, and it's just like that's what he enjoys. It's like, ugh, that's what an amazing outlook to have. The quote, "Youth is wasted on the young," really rings true, because they just don't understand how good they have it, and like everything, not just the life, but the mentality of, it's like, I just want to blow leaves. That just sounds like awesome.
Totally. For our listeners, I would love to hear, I think, a little bit just of a story or clarification as we speak about your wife and your daughter and kind of how you approach them on social media.
Yeah. So long before our daughter was born, and early in our relationship, my wife and I started dating, and my Instagram, I didn't have a big audience at that point. It was pretty small. And so we shared her name and everything, and because it was just normal.
Right.
But as there hit a point where things really started to pick up, which in most ways is a huge blessing, and it's been incredible, but there's some really weird fucking people out there. And because we were sharing her name and all that, they would find her on social media and they'd send her some weird stuff that was just
weird stuff.
And it's my account, not hers. And she was just in it because she's a part of my life.
Right.
And we had a real conversation where she was like, I don't feel comfortable people knowing who I am anymore and having access to me. And so we decided we're not going to share her name, and we're not going to share her accounts. Same thing with our daughter. We are like to share pictures and videos of her, but she's completely anonymous. No one knows her name, any of that stuff. And this is all by design, mainly for safety and all of that. And if my daughter gets to a point where she's like, hey, I want you to take me off all of your social media, then I'll take down every post I ever made with her. And like, she'll cease to exist. But I wanted to give her the chance for anonymity, just like to not take that away. I know a lot of people, they share the names of their kids and stuff, and that's fine. But for us, we thought it would be best just give you the chance for some anonymity.
Yeah, definitely. So is it Nini?
Yeah. So my wife's nickname is Nini, and that stemmed from when we first started dating. She always ordered paninis, and so
I love that.
I would just call her Panini, and then from Panini to Paniner, and then to Neener, and then to Nini, and so that's just been her nickname for years. And my daughter is named after my great-grandfather, Abraham, who fled Russia when he was 12 years old. Really amazing story. But when I shared that she was named after Abraham, there were people on Instagram who were like, wait, so you're naming your daughter Abraham?
Abraham. Yeah.
And I was like, no, but you know what? We'll go with that. So now I just call her Old Abe, and that's her nickname on social media.
I love that. Yes. And again, like, I've been following your story for several years, but I would love to give some context for our listeners. What his life looked like for you to really get where you are. So just like snapshot of, this is baby Jordan really hating college to this is where Jordan is now as a dad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for hours, so feel free to cut me off if I'm rambling too much. I grew up in a house with a lot of turmoil between my mom and dad. It was not a good marriage. It's funny when I tell people that my parents are divorced, they always, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, no, you don't get it. Like, it was really
Mm,
good that they finally, I wish they got divorced earlier. They waited until I was like 16 or 17. So it was a really rough in the house, and there was always real money issues. It was always a huge, huge problem in the house. And my entire family has always struggled with their health and with their weight. Everyone. For whatever reason, I was blessed with the love of fitness and athletics and sports.
hmm.
No one else in my family was like that. Everyone else were doctors and lawyers and teachers and professors and superintendents, academics. And
Yeah.
I was terrible in school. I was in special education. I was not good in school, but I always loved sports and athletics. And so that's just what I pursued. And I started wrestling, and I was 8 years old. By the time I got to high school, I made varsity as a freshman, and that just prompted me to get more involved in strength and conditioning and working out. So I wrote an email to a gym a couple towns over from me. I grew up outside Boston, Massachusetts, and I was just like, listen, I'll take the trash out, I'll clean the floor,
Hmm.
I'll wash the mats. I just want to come and learn from you. And I was 14, and I was very blessed. They took me in, and they were also incredibly science based. And the two coaches there, I'm still friends with to this day, Stacy Shadler, Kevin McCarthy. At 14, they were treating me like I was a real coach, and they were giving me the best books and the best scientific resources to read. And they were coaching me, and they were letting me become a coach myself. I just became obsessed with coaching. And it was something where I knew I loved working out for me, but I really figured out through that experience that I also loved coaching other people. And that, I think, is the main difference between
Hmm.
personal trainers who last and personal trainers who don't. I think most personal trainers burn out because they like working out themselves, but they don't like coaching other people. It's two very different things to coach other people. And I remember one of my first clients, his name was Fred. He was 68 years old, and it was supervised when I was working with him. But he was like, he told me his goal was just to be able to pick up his grandson without hurting his shoulders. And I remember I
Yeah.
was 14 or 15 at the time. And my only goals were to be good at wrestling and to look good naked. And at 14 or 15, you don't really have much perspective into what other people want. And so for me to hear this guy, he didn't care about having a six pack. He didn't care about looking good naked. He didn't care about lifting a lot of weight. He just wanted to be able to pick up his grandson without hurting his shoulders. And I vividly remember the moment where we were, what he said, how he said it, and my response. And in that moment, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do, is coach people, because I became more excited about helping him reach his goals than me reaching my goals. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And now I've never had another job other than coaching people.
So I think it's just been super cool to see like what and how you've built your foundation. So especially from like a weight loss health perspective. So especially diving into like more of the father side aspect of it, because I know you've touched on it, just sharing like this transition, like mentally, physically, and your expectations for how you like perceive your body and fitness. I would love to just start there. Like, what has shifted for you in this new life stage of I'm a father and my time is limited. My workouts are going to be in a completely different schedule. What has that looked like for you?
Yeah. So the biggest shift was early. Number one, I had no idea how hard it would be to have a kid,
Mm,
right? Like,
hmm.
I just didn't know. And it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me, and it's also been unbelievably difficult, especially early on. I think the first 5 weeks were
Yeah.
fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And and however hard it was on me, it was 100 times harder for my wife. But I consider myself an empath, very much. Like, I very much feel what other people feel, and I saw how unbelievably difficult it was on my wife, and like I felt that pain, and it was compounded because I can't she can't drink from my nipple. Like, she can't, and I see that my wife is super sore and she's tired. It's like I could be up, but it's still not as hard as like what you're going through. So it was very difficult. And early on, we realized that it would make the most sense if I did the late night feeding at like
Yeah.
somewhere between like 12 and 2 in the 12 to 2 in the morning. I have no problem staying up late. I'm more of a late night person anyway. When things are normal, I prefer to go to bed at like 10, just because
Hmm.
like I think it's better for you.
Right.
But it was a no-brainer for me to like, I'll take that one. And that way, like, basically I shifted my workouts to be at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, which was really difficult. Like, I don't really like to work out that late, but I knew that was really the only way I was going to get my workouts in. And it would also help my wife in terms of being able to feed my daughter, take that super late night feeding so my wife could get at least a little bit more rest. I knew through doing that, my workouts wouldn't be as intense. I wouldn't be able to perform at the level that I really, really wanted to. But I knew above all, the most important thing was I was just getting my workouts in. That was just, I couldn't let them go by the wayside. And I can very easily tell now why so many people struggle when they have kids, because it takes so much time and energy away. And for me, it was just, listen, I can't. And to be fair, if I'm being very objective, it's because it's part of my job, I have extra incentive to do it. I very much wonder if fitness wasn't my job, if I would still have that wherewithal to go at 10 or 11 at night to work out, if my image wasn't part of, if I gained 50 pounds when my daughter was born, there would be a lot of people who'd be like, like not practicing what you're preaching. And I was like, so there's a lot of that. Like, I've got to do this for my fucking job too. Never mind for living longer and for being healthy. But there was that as well, which I call it like the biggest loser effect, because a lot of people look at the results that people get on The Biggest Loser. And I'm thinking, but yet they're on international TV.
Yeah.
These people have cameras on them 24/7. They have an unbelievable amount of reason to starve themselves and to work out for 6, 8, 10 hours a day. Because if people are watching that and they're not doing it, people are going to judge them even more severely than they already are. So when people are watching me, like I have even more of a drive to do it just for that. So I think it would be unfair of me not to mention that as also one of the reasons as to why I was able to continue to work out super late at night when I didn't want to.
Yeah, for sure. Which is so interesting because I shared today, like, I'm actually stepping away from the gym for the first time in probably like 6 to 8 years. And I think that's come from the fact that I've realized I'm 2 years postpartum. I actually like stepped into this journey wanting to serve others because I remember what that felt like to come out of a C-section. We're military also, so we had absolutely no resources and we're not prepared for birth or postpartum within the military, like healthcare. So I like had the desire to become certified as a prenatal and postnatal coach and like heal myself. But the other day I had the conversation with a friend whom we've worked out together, we've trained together, we've written each other's programs. And it was just this place of like, dove into cyclical fitness. Like I've navigated that for friends because I think that's a really helpful tool. But I got to the point where in motherhood, especially with like my husband's training schedule, it is more stressful mentally and emotionally for me to get a workout in than it is probably beneficial for like whatever perspective or expectation of myself I have aesthetically. So I'm actually like stepping away for the gym, which was like really hard for me to admit on social media because it was like, hey, I'm a coach and I'm like taking a break from the gym because for my mental, emotional, and like where I am as a mother right now, like I cannot.
Yes.
It's impacting my nutritional habits because I have this overwhelming pressure to like eat well. And then it's like body check-in behaviors. Like I noticed all of these other things because we've been out of our house in and out over the past couple weeks. I was like, wait a minute, like this is what happens when I stepped out of the gym. So what happens if I actually take a planned just month off of like feeling the pressure to get up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. when my husband gets home from PT to go hard in the gym, come home, and I'm spent parenting my son the rest of the day. So I think that's just like so interesting to navigate like in seasons of life, but also managing your own expectations of like what health and fitness means in new life stages.
Yeah. And for you to be, number one, honest about it, I love that. That's amazing. I also love that you have for you to understand, listen, you're taking a month off. You're not going to ruin all your progress. Like, and to communicate that to your audience and to your clients and to everyone, and even for your son to see that. And like, this is all documented. Like, our kids and grandkids and all, they're going to see all the stuff
Right.
we did for your son and your grandchildren, all this, to be able to see like, oh, look, like she took a whole month off, and like, and this was her job, and that's what she did. It's like, it sets a really amazing example for everybody to see that. And I think it's unbelievably important. And I'm super proud that you're doing that. And I hope that you're proud of yourself as well, because I know it can be very difficult.
Thank you. And I think the expectation for myself and giving myself that space is like, we have a full like rig and setup in the backyard. And I realized it was unhealthy when I was even getting to the point of, it's stressful for me to not get a home workout, and there's all those differences in like people thinking, oh, well, it's not a real workout unless you're blah.
We're idiots.
So that's where I've just given myself a lot more freedom. Is like, that's okay. We have a rig in the back. We have dumbbells. We have all the things, but like, it is not good for my mental, physical, or emotional health to just be working out right now. And that's okay, because I've literally been in the gym doing the fitness thing for like a long time. So it'll be okay.
Exactly. It'll be totally fine. And when you get back to it, it'll be at a point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to get back to it. There's not stress around it anymore. Sometimes you need these breaks. I think that's super important. And I basically just took almost a month off of training myself. When we were traveling all around, like, really, the only exercise we got were steps. We just walked every day. And it was wonderful. It was family walks, and we were out, and it's just, we try and do that as often as we can in general. But I think taking some time away from the gym and just focusing on stuff that like really matters, and giving yourself the space that you need, is so important. And if and when you do decide you're ready to get back into it, then you'll be ready to go, and you'll be in a much better place for it.
Oh, definitely. I am super curious to hear like what encouragements or recommendations you would give to husbands to support their spouses in that early postpartum window. Like you said, for you, it was taking the night feeding. My husband did a similar thing where he took over nights because I was dying during the day. So what encouragements would you give for men in that similar situation postpartum?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the one thing that I've really learned, it's funny. I think throughout life, if the more relationships you have, I think you learn that not only is every person different, every couple is different. And oftentimes, if you're, depending on who you're with, like, you can even act differently.
For sure.
Right. And so I think one of the great parts about finding your person is like, you also become the person that you want to be. And without getting into a whole philosophical side of that, I think it's difficult to give blanket advice for every person, every couple, of just do this, because every woman going through childbirth and the postpartum experience is going to have a very different experience, and their partner is going to have a different experience, and their relationship together is going to be different. But what it really all boils down to is, do your best to be as openly communicative as possible. With that being said, I think during that time, my wife is like the sweetest person I've ever met. And before we had our daughter, I had seen her cry maybe 4 times in our entire time together. After she was born, like, it was nonstop, waterworks, crying, and she didn't know why. It wasn't like there was no postpartum depression. There was none of that. It was just hormones going crazy, is what she would say. She's like, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know. And there was actually a loss of communication, because I think I just don't know why I'm feeling this way. And so a lot of it was me positing, what if I did this, or what if I do that? Let me try doing this. Let me try doing that. And then gauging her reaction. Oh, she liked that. I'll keep doing that. Oh, she didn't like that. I won't do that. And it's more just trying for me to just play it by ear and try things out, and take the initiative, but also try not to get upset if like they give you a little attitude, or they're going, it's watching that whole process. I was like, holy shit. Like, my wife had a 26-hour labor, and I was just like, I was exhausted, and I wasn't even doing it. thing. Like, like I think so much is just really trying to be patient
Mhm.
and just trying, and also understanding it's going to be difficult and knowing that, listen, this is going to be a very difficult time. And once you stop expecting it to not be difficult and you can embrace, yep, this is a very difficult time, the more okay with it you are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Something my husband always joked about when we came home from the hospital, which I don't appreciate from him, was like, God, I was so exhausted laying on the couch and waiting for him to come out. We're in the hospital for 4 days waiting for our son to
Oh
come
my
out
God.
because he was
Ugh.
very comfy. But my husband was like, yeah, my knees hurt from like standing. I was like, you know what?
Shut
You're lucky I love you and this is your son.
up.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, it really changes perspective on every aspect of life. I remember the first few days after watching my wife give birth, everywhere I walked and I was just seeing people, I was like, every single person I'm seeing once came out of a woman's body. And it's like,
mhm.
it
Yeah,
sounds like if someone had said this to me, like, I mean, yeah, obviously dumbass, like that's not a weird, but when you see it
right.
happen, and I'm like, every single woman went through a crazy pregnancy and like it went through a delivery process, and like every single one of us, it's like, fuck, it's just crazy, especially after watching it. I was like, it's nuts, like it's a miracle.
Yeah, my husband and I, the constant conversation we have is like, who let us have a kid? Like he was running in the backyard yesterday with like the sprinkler. I was like, who let us have a grown human that will grow into a bigger
Yeah,
human? Mind blowing.
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. I feel like you should have to have a license in order to have
That.
it. But then again, like I wouldn't trust the government to give that
Nope.
license out properly.
Yes. Perfectly said. I would love to shift gears a little bit because calorie deficit is your forte. You actually almost got me with that video, I think a couple weeks ago, where you were like, I have this new supplement. And I'm like, Jordan.
The herb from Tibet.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would love for you to kind of clarify, first of all, the difference between fat loss and weight loss.
hmm
And then, because this was a conversation I had the other day with my husband as well, the importance of nutrition driving your fat loss versus the importance of your exercise
Mm,
trying to have your exercise drive your fat loss.
yeah. Great topics. So we'll start with the first bit, which is weight loss versus fat loss. And there's a lot of confusion around it, and I've tried to make a lot of content sort of just making it clear what it is, but even if I just explain it, people won't fully get it, which is one of my favorite pieces of content that I've made. I'll probably have to remake it again just because it really helped people see it. If I weigh myself right now, let's say I weigh 150, 150
Yeah.
pounds. If I got in a sauna or a hot tub for 20 minutes, I could easily lose 3 pounds just from that. And it's 0.000 of it is fat. Like there's no fat is lost. It's all water.
Or you could poop,
And,
you know?
or I could poop, right? It's funny. I usually lose more weight from peeing than pooping. Like if I wake
Hmm.
up in the morning and like generally speaking, I have more pee than I have poop. It depends
Yeah.
on the day. But
Yeah.
like you poop, you pee, you cut your leg off, you're losing weight. These are
Right.
all weight loss strategies. And a lot of people don't realize like our body is mostly water and we have a lot of water in it. And what weighs more? You take out a pail or a bucket at the beach with your kids, you have an empty pail or you fill that pail up with water, which weighs more?
Mhm.
Obviously the pail with water weighs a lot more and it's exponentially heavier. Even a tiny little pail filled with water is exponentially heavier. And so weight loss is just you're losing water weight, you're losing glycogen, you're losing stomach content, you're losing so many things in your body outside of fat. And fat could be included in weight loss, but it's not the only thing.
Mhm.
Fat loss is just fat. That is it. We're not talking about water loss. We're not talking about glycogen loss. We're not talking about stomach content loss. We're not talking about poop or urine, none of that. It's just fat. And when it comes to fat, it takes longer time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
slower process.
Right.
Now, the ironic thing about weight loss is you can lose a lot of weight very quickly, but after the initial loss of water and glycogen stomach content, that's when you'll notice a huge stall out. And that is where a lot of people who try things like the ketogenic diet, they get really motivated early on because they lose a lot of weight very quickly. And I remember I made a piece of content on this probably about a year ago that sort of explained it. If you take a piece of bread and you mop up water on the counter, that piece of bread is now going to weigh more.
Right.
Because that bread absorbs the water like a sponge and now it weighs more because it has more water in it. You squeeze that water out of the bread, and I have a whole piece of content of me doing this. Like, you see the water come out, now it weighs less because you just squeezed out all of the water. When you carbs, one of the things carbs will do is they will absorb water like a sponge, like literally like a sponge. When you remove carbs from your diet, then your body will not hold on to as much water because it doesn't have sponges soaking it up. So you initially lose a lot of weight, and maybe it's the first 5 days or 7 days or 12 days, you might lose a lot of weight and then stall. And then people are like, oh, it's not working for me anymore. It's like, well, no, it is, but the reason you think it's not is because you lost a lot of weight at the very beginning and you thought now that that's the rate at which you're supposed to continue losing weight.
Yes.
No, you've lost all the excess weight, all like the extraneous stuff. Now we're just talking about fat. It's like this is going to take a lot longer. It's a much slower process. Why I prefer people do a diet that is not the ketogenic diet, because I want you to include carbs in your diet. I want you to include your favorite foods because this is a long haul. It's a long game. Fat loss is not fun. I would rather you do it in an enjoyable way that you can sustain over a long period of time than an unenjoyable way that you can't sustain and then end up binging and gaining all the weight back.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So that's the difference between weight and fat loss. And then the other question you had was, I forget what the other one was. I'm sorry.
It was like, how would you explain the importance of having nutrition drive your fat loss versus trying to drive your fat loss in the gym?
Yes. So there are many reasons why trying to make the majority of fat loss come from exercise is a really terrible idea. Many reasons.
Yes.
Not least of which, I think the most important one is, no matter what you do in life, you always have to eat. Always. If you don't eat, you die. Period. End of story. Like this, everyone can agree on that. And this is what I always try and do. Whenever I have a debate with someone, a lot of people think the goal of a debate is to prove the other person wrong. It's not the goal of a debate. The goal of a debate is to try and figure out where you have common ground. What do you actually agree on, and then go from there. So
and learn.
Exactly. Everyone can agree that you need to eat, period. There will be periods of time in your life, and it's ironic that you spoke about how you're taking a month off now. There will be periods of time in your life in which you are not able to exercise, whether it's from a mental health perspective, physical health. Maybe you've got a debilitating injury. Maybe God forbid, one of your family members is going through a crisis and you're going to be there to help them with it, and like you just don't have the time or the energy to exercise. If you base your weight loss efforts and weight maintenance efforts on your activity level, then not if, but when your activity level changes, you won't know how to continue losing or maintaining your fat loss. That's like, you can't, because you've based it all on your energy output. And from there, I think we can all agree on that. From there, if you're basing your fat loss or weight loss maintenance on your output, then inherently you will have to do more. You have to exercise more in order to keep that up. You're going to have to exercise for hours and hours in order to burn enough calories in order to make that happen. Whereas with nutrition, you can cut out a couple hundred calories relatively easily. You just don't eat it. It's much easier said than done, but it's easier to cut out 300 calories nutritionally than it is to burn an extra 300 calories through exercise. Like, way easier, way less time.
Right.
So generally speaking, the majority of your fat loss should come from your nutrition. Exercise for your health. I'm not saying don't exercise. When you exercise, the goal with exercise is not fat loss. The goal with exercise is not to burn calories. The goal with exercise is to improve your health, get stronger, build more muscle, reduce your blood pressure, perform better, lift heavier weights, feel more confident. These are the goals of exercise. With nutrition, you can also have these goals, but That's where fat loss comes from. Nutrition is the driver of fat loss. Exercise is the passenger in the car for fat loss. Like, it can help and it has a role in it, but it should not be the driver. If exercise is driving your fat loss car is about to get fucked up real quick.
Yeah, you're in a burnout. I think the conversation the other day I had was like, if you were to look at fat loss like a bucket, nutrition is filling that bucket with water with like a Route 44 like Sonic cup versus using like a Dixie cup.
Yes, I love
it's
that.
Just like it's not going to work. Or rather, like, you can use the Dixie cup, but you're going to get pissed off real fast because it's taking you 3 times as long.
And it's going to disintegrate after a certain amount of time. A Dixie cup like always disintegrates.
Oh, like, yeah, the bottom goes out.
Yeah, exactly.
You're done.
That's what happens. I think that's the bottom will go out eventually. It's exactly right.
Especially in the calorie deficit conversation. So like, you've made content on it, you've talked about it. For people that, don't have a healthy history with counting calories, it's not healthy for their lifestyle. How would you suggest people pursue a calorie deficit that's outside of calorie counting?
Yeah, great question. Very important question. Younger Coach Jordan, probably about 8 to 12 years ago, I went through a phase of thinking, oh, everyone needs to count calories. That's just like what I thought. And this is one of the biggest mistakes of my career, in which I was like, I wouldn't take on clients unless they were willing to count calories. And after years, I was like, man, I'm saying no to a lot of clients who could really use my help. So maybe instead of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, maybe I should try and build a round hole to help these people who need build a square peg nutritional concept. And that's when I came up with my 3 plates, 2 snacks, because the reality is, in order to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, but you don't need to count your calories in order to lose fat. And you don't need to count them in order to be in a calorie deficit. There are ways to essentially, it's just another way to find portion control. It's another way to reduce your calories. And so there are many ways to do it. My personal favorite way is you have 3 plates and 2 snacks every day. Now, this is a general recommendation. I would say this is generally for people between like 135 to 185, which is a pretty big range, pounds. Once you go above 185, I'll add another plate. And if you go below 135, I'll start reducing snacks. I won't reduce the plates. I still want you to have 3 square meals, but mainly just because like it's how you're going to stay full. And I would rather take the snacks away than the plates. But generally, it's 3 plates, 2 snacks. Each plate, people always like to get too confused with it and too meticulous. Well, how many inches or centimeters should the plate be? Motherfucker, plate.
It's a plate.
If it's the size of a lunch tray, you've gone too far.
Sit down, practice mindfulness.
Yes.
With your plate. It's fine.
It's funny. I've had clients who try to make their plate way too big. Like they get like a lunch tray size plate or like a trash bin top. I've also had clients
that's funny.
who try and make it the size of a thimble. Like they make it way too small. I'm like, no, like a real fucking plate.
Right.
Every plate has to have protein on it. Every plate has to have some vegetables on it. And then, and otherwise you can fill it up however you'd like. But 3 plates full, 2 snacks. And generally the snack should be for men, I say about the size of your palm, for women about the size of your hand, and fruits and or protein for the snack is basically it. And I say, if you're going to have alcohol that night, for every alcoholic drink that you think you're going to have, remove 1 snack that day, just because that's probably going to add a little bit extra calories in. But otherwise, that's it. It's pretty basic. It's very simple. I'm actually, when we were at my wife's grandparents' house in Atlanta, I was looking through their cabinets, and her grandmother showed me this amazing thing that she had. It was a plate and a bowl with markings on the plate and bowl for like essentially what should go where, protein, carbs.
Wow, yeah.
And I was like, that is so genius. And I was like, what if I made these for 3 plates, 2 snacks? What if I made my own version of plate bowls and all that? Like that looked nice that people would want to have in the house, but that way you don't need to pull out the measuring cup or whatever. It's like, no, it's just like, this is generally what I want you to follow. So I'm in the process of seeing how I can get these made.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's super simple. You don't count calories. You have 3 plates, 2 snacks, and that's it.
Yeah. What would you say? Because I'm already thinking through all of the fitness gurus that would have things to say about this. What would you say to someone being like, well, you can't know for sure, what your calorie intake would be, because in theory I could fit 5 pieces of pizza on my plate, like.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't know for sure that they're correct. You can't. That's correct. But we can track your progress,
Mm-hmm.
and the progress will tell us if it's working or not. And if your pants are getting tighter and the scale is continuously going up for a month, then there's a mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
what we can do is we can look at the foods that you're eating. We can look at your plates. And usually I would have clients send me pictures via email of their plates. And I remember I had one client who they were like, yeah, like, I don't know why it's not working. And they sent me a picture of their plate, and it was like a huge fucking plate of lasagna.
Oh,
And I was like,
really?
okay,
That's
well,
why.
there's
Yeah.
protein there and there's carbs, yeah, but like this is probably not what should be making up the whole plate. That should make up a small sliver of the plate. And so it's very simple in order to figure out, like, if I have someone, let's say, never mind 3 plates, 2 snacks, let's say I have someone who's 400 pounds and they don't know where to begin. I will not have, sometimes I'll have them count calories depending on the person, but the first thing I have them do before even counting calories or 3 plates, 2 snacks, just write down everything they eat. That's the first thing I have them do. That's it. It's just, I don't even have them count the calories. I don't have them Google it. Just write everything down. Really, because it's just an awareness thing early on, and it's a form of accountability. And so if someone's doing 3 plates, 2 snacks, yeah, you're right. We don't know for sure how many calories they're eating. And frankly, that's one of the benefits as well, because I'll usually give it to someone who shouldn't be meticulous with counting their calories for any mental health or whatever reasons are going on. Um, but all you do is it's the same discussion when people say, why shouldn't I track my calories burned during a workout? It's like, because you don't need to. All we need to do is track your progress. And from there, if we know how much you're eating and we know your progress, then from there we can adjust.
Yeah.
Same thing with 3 plates of snacks. We don't need to know how many calories you're burning. We can track your progress. And if it's not going the way we want, look at the foods that you're eating, look at the plates and say, you know what? Maybe your plate has too many cookies on it. Let's take a couple cookies off, add another apple in there instead, and this might be a good change. We don't have to remove all the cookies, but maybe some of them. You don't need 12, right? Maybe you could just do it 2, and that's fine. And so it's a plug and play. And this is what a lot of people don't understand or don't want to understand. I don't care how good your coach is. When someone hires a coach and you give them all the information they need, it's still plug and play. They give you it's an initial recommendation, program design based on what I have now. But you might come back and say, that exercise hurt my knee. Cool, plug and play. I'm not going to give you that exercise for a little while. I'll give you this instead. Oh, you know what? This food didn't really fill me up very much, or this amount of calories I'm losing my mind on, or whatever it is. Cool, let's plug and play. Let's try this. It's plug and play.
Yeah.
And the benefit of having a coach or a good coach is they're happy to plug and play. And they'll take your feedback and then they'll put it into your program. And that's what individualization is. People think an individualized program is a crazy unique program. No, it's very basic. The individualization is just based on plugging and playing as you grow and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. That's really it. So whether you're doing it by yourself or with a coach, it's all plug and play.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's been super helpful with working with some of my friends immediately postpartum, and for myself was I knew that postpartum, personally, and you can correct me on this, calorie counting was not recommended immediately postpartum. I'm trying to figure out how to do my body and care for a new human. So that wasn't even something that I would entertain with some of my friends. Like, it's not the season, and that's okay. So like we had definitely tried to implement the 3 plates and 3 snacks just as a form of regular eating, because especially postpartum, I forgot to eat if my husband didn't feed me or bring me snacks, not to mention nursing. And that's a whole other conversation. But even now I had to recognize, like, for my own heart and where I want to go fitness wise, I couldn't digitally track my protein. So I started writing it down. I have a sticky note on my fridge. So every day, all I write down is my protein intake, and it works,
That's perfect. You don't need a fancy app. You don't need to be like meticulous with it. It's sticky notes. I love it. That's perfect.
Yeah. So that's been actually super helpful, I think, derived from just some of the stuff you've shared over the years. And it's actually brought a lot of freedom. And protein prioritization is a whole other topic. But definitely you should be eating your protein, especially women, especially postpartum.
I think the two most underrated aspects of nutrition are protein and fiber.
Absolutely.
So the two most important and underrated, especially for women around protein and fiber for everyone. But I would say protein, especially for women, and fiber, especially for men. Like the two, I think women often under eat protein, and they're better generally at getting fiber than men. Men often overeat protein and undereat fiber. So it's unique to see, and that's obviously broad strokes, but that's generally what I've seen.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I would definitely be amiss if I didn't ask you this. So I know it's been a part, Harry Potter has been a part of your story because of
Yes.
just your mom and getting to read those. I'm a fellow Harry Potter nerd. My husband loves Star Wars. So we kind of like have that rivalry in our household.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But I would just love to know, like, what is it going to look like for you to introduce Harry Potter to your daughter? Is that something that you're excited about? Are you looking forward to introducing that?
I can't wait. I cannot wait. And I go through these debates in my head, right? So like I was born in 91, and the book started coming out. I think the first book came out when I was in first grade. And the only reason I remember that is because Will McCartney was Harry Potter for Halloween in second grade. And he had a Nimbus 2000 that he made, and I was so jealous.
Oh my gosh.
Like that's why I remember that. So I believe the first book came out when I was in first grade, and they really, I hit the age where it was like every time the new book came out, I was like right on par with it. It was very cool to go through that, and part of me is like, maybe should I make them, like my daughter and God willing future children, should I make them like wait sort of and space it out like we did? I don't know if I'll be able to, or I don't know if that's the right thing. I'm deciding.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read the books to all of them, to my kids and my wife. Like I can't wait. I'm my mom did that with my brother and I, and it was like one of my most fond memories from being a kid. I know it's one of my mom can't talk about it now without crying. It's like it's such a great memory for her. And so it's like I want to do the same thing with my kids. So
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I love that.
Do you read them to your son, or are you waiting? Is he not old enough yet?
Um, we don't read it all right now because
Okay.
we're way too busy.
Yeah.
Like he just got a Little Tikes, like the plastic car with like the eyes and stuff. I
Yeah.
found one off of Facebook Marketplace. And earlier I was trying to get some content done, came outside and he was like standing in the trunk of it and was like climbing to sit on the top. So we don't read yet.
Okay. Okay, good.
It's on our list. We're just a little too busy right now. But definitely.
It's hard. It's hard for a 2-year-old to like. I feel like you've probably got to be at least 7 or
Yeah.
8 before you can really understand and be able to sit down and listen. Like I would imagine. I'm not a child educator, but 2 years old seems really young to sit down and read like
Yeah,
that.
and I've had friends that they said, well, you can always start with the audiobook. And I was like, oh, I love that. I would love to listen to the audiobook. So
Yeah.
that might be something in our future soon.
I love the audiobooks. Often what I'll do is what's helped me with retention in reading in general is I'll listen to the audiobook and read it as well at the same time. And that's nice because in today's day and age with reading, it's very easy for me to just be like, I'll pick up my phone and like look at what's going on in the middle. And it fucks, whether I'm listening to it or reading a book, it fucks me up. So when I'm listening to the audiobook and reading it, all my attention is just on the book, which is very, very helpful.
Definitely. Well, Jordan, this has been such an amazing conversation. I would love for you to just share where a community can connect with you, your book, your podcast, all of those things.
Yeah. If you Google my name, Jordan Syatt, it'll come up on podcast and Instagram and YouTube, all that. But I will say you have an amazing, amazing coach that you're listening to in Raina. I would just keep following her, hire her to be your coach. I can
Thank
tell
you.
just from have this one conversation, you're really a great coach, and anyone would be very lucky and blessed to work with you. So more important than finding me, reach out to Raina and work with her. I can tell you, and I don't say this lightly, she's an amazing coach. I can already tell.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jordan. I will link all of that, all of those things. I've loved your book. I literally bought it for other people
Thank you.
because I was like, I sent it to family members and I was like, you need to read this. Not only have I just been saying this, but maybe, like if one of your friends tells you something, or rather like if your parent tells you something, but then your best friend tells you the same thing, you're like, oh yeah, totally.
Yes, exactly.
That's what your book was for some of my family and friends.
A lot of I told you so's.
If you're not going to listen to me, listen to Jordan. But I have one more question for you. We close it with all of our guests just because this is a platform where I want to speak truth to who we were and who we want to be moving forward. So if you could provide any wisdom to your younger self or for a community that is listening, what would you share?
Oh, there's so much that I would like to say, but I'll say, I think it must be very difficult to be a young person now, with social media and I think it's just much more difficult. And I think every generation has their own difficulties and things and it's all relative. But I think even as an adult, it can be hard with social media and comparison and all of that, never mind being a kid. And the one thing that I would say is what's really important to remember is that life, you lose more than you win. Everybody. We all lose more than we win. We're just more likely to share our wins and less likely to share our losses. And the only person who has full unrestricted access to your life is you. So you see all of your losses and you feel them and you experience them, and you see other people and often they'll be sharing their wins, and it can be very easy to get in your own head and think that you're a loser and that like you're not doing well enough for where you should be, where it shoulds in quotes, it's just horseshit, all of that.
Right.
I'm not going to say don't compare yourself to others, because I think there can be a lot of strength in comparison used appropriately. But I would say just remember everybody loses more than they wins. Everyone, myself included, everybody. People are just more likely to share their wins. And so keep that in mind when you're watching other people and seeing what they're saying. Just there's always more to the story. There's always more that's going on. And what's most important is what you're doing. And when you lose, losing isn't a death sentence. Losing isn't final. It's just another step in the process. So the only way you fail is if you quit. And this is with everything in life. Losing is inevitable.
Yeah.
Failing is a choice. And that's when you decide to stop. So understand that losing is fine. It's not a bad thing. It's part of the process, and just keep going. And that's it. And I know it can be really difficult, but you're the one that has to make the decision to understand it's okay to lose. Just don't quit. Keep going.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Jordan. This was honestly like a gift of an episode. So thank you so much for all of the wisdom and your time today. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you don't want to miss any wisdom or encouragement, be sure to subscribe to the show. And don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback means so much and helps our community grow. If you're looking for more wellness wisdom and free resources, head over to livingwiselywell.com or get connected with me on Instagram at wiselywell. And if you're looking for a break from the hurried health lifestyle, check out my Return to Rest resource for tangible ways to slow down and finally find rest.